Ukraine, political analyst and writer, Arieh Kovler. Arieh, thank you very much indeed for joining us on the News Hour. Protesters out in force today, as they have been for many months now. I mean, do you feel Israel is facing a crisis of democracy right now and that will escalate following today's events?
I think Israel is certainly facing a crisis of democracy. Whether it will escalate or die down now is unclear. There's a certain sense, I think, amongst all the sides right now, which is that everything was building up to today, and now the law passed, and now what? We had a similar situation only a few months ago with another part of this judicial reform package, where at the last moment the bill was pulled, the protesters won. And I think going into it, there was a sense that, oh, we've done it once, we can do it again. And this time, of course, that didn't happen. The government got this law through, they had the votes, they forced it through. And even their internal attempts to water it down at the last minute failed after Benjamin Netanyahu couldn't get his own coalition to support his ideas to water it down.
Yeah, and if this does now water away or take away the power of the Supreme Court to veto government policies it disagrees with, what checks and balances remain?
Well, Israel only has one House of Parliament, the Knesset. It's very small, with only 120 members, and really doesn't have very many checks and balances built into the system. And the Supreme Court essentially evolved a very strong oversight rule because there wasn't very much else. The government can pretty much do what it wants, and it always has a majority in Parliament, or it wouldn't be able to exist. Now, there's this particular path in which the Supreme Court had to review certain government actions, what they call in English law wedlock-free unreasonableness, something that's so unreasonable that no reasonable person could ever do it. With that off the table, that the government ministers thinking about doing things that are extremely unreasonable. One of the hot topic here, for example, is whether or not convicted criminals and fraudsters should be allowed to be government ministers. The Supreme Court said, no, that's completely unreasonable. But now there are several who potentially stand to be made government ministers now. Now the path has been cleared for them.
And Benjamin Netanyahu himself remains facing corruption charges. Where does he currently stand in all of this? Clearly, he's lost a lot of favour with the people of Israel, but he also appears to be losing favour with his own coalition partners.
Well, he's kind of trapped in some sense. Netanyahu is on trial right now for corruption, and really strongly seems to believe that he must remain prime minister, whether that is to help with his trial or just out of a personal strong belief that the country cannot survive without him. And within his coalition, he has people on his right who are prepared to bring him down if they don't do what he says, and no one on his left who's prepared to help him or save him or throw him a lifeline. So essentially, he's in office, but he's not really in power anymore. Benjamin Netanyahu is not in charge. People in charge are Justice Minister Yoav Levin and other members of his coalition to his right, who are in a position to dictate terms to him completely. And even his own last-minute attempts to water down this bill failed after his coalition partners said, no, this is going to happen or we walk.
Arieh, we thank you very much indeed. We'll have to leave it there, but we appreciate you coming on the News Hour as always.